Real Estate Regulations and Development Act was enacted by the Parliament of India in 2016. This enactment was passed in the Rajya Sabha on 10th March and by the Lok Sabha on 15th March 2016. Further, the act received its assent from the President of India on 25th March, and some of its provisions came into effect from 1st May 2016. In this video, Avekshit Mural and Almitra Gupta share their insights on the ramifications of the Real Estate Regulation and Development Act 2016.
Objects of the Act. The Act was brought into force with 4-5 key objects in mind. The first and the foremost object of the Act was to ensure that there was free-flowing information available in the public domain. This was one of the complaints under the earlier Act, wherein most of the consumers were complaining of not having access to enough documentation at the time of purchase. The second important point that we tried to address under this Act was by ensuring that there is enough transparency in the sector. Although real estate sector is one of the largest sector in India currently, but it is one of the unrestricted and unregulated sector. Another object of the Act was to ensure that there were certain minimum standards which were set at the time of construction, and also ensure quality that was delivered to the consumers. The Act also proposes to establish a real estate regulatory authority and a real estate tribunal. This tribunal will be solely looking into consumer-related issues between an end user and a developer. The authority will be looking into the regulatory perspective of developers into the sector. The most important objective of the Act was to ensure that there is respite being brought about to the purchasers. The first thing that comes to mind the moment we speak of this Act is with regards to the applicability of this Act. The earlier acts which were in force in various states in India were mostly restricted to sale of apartments or flats. Now the gamut of this Act considerably is wide. We are talking of sale of plots, we're talking of sale of apartments, commercial premises, which are all included within the ambit of this Act. Going forward, we are trying to streamline the real estate sector as far as India is concerned, because there was a lot of hue and cry basically from the consumer especially, because this is one of the largest sector in India and which is actually to an extent unregulated. We are talking of a sector which is contributing a good 5 to 10% of the GDP, but which appears to be to a great extent unregulated. Keeping this in mind, the central government came up with a uniform act for the whole of India, which will be applicable to its union territories as well as the states. There are certain key elements of this act which I thought I should share with everyone, which according to me will have a great impact in the days to come. The first thing that comes to mind is the formation of the regulator. This regulator will be the key authority which will be keeping tab on the people associated with the real estate market, whether directly or indirectly. It will be the one who will be keeping an eye on the various practices that will be followed going forward, the way assets are dealt with, the way it is sold in the market, the way it is bought back in the market. These are the things that we are basically trying to look into. Some of the key things that I would want to share right at the beginning are some of the definitions that are laid out in the Act. Now, earlier we had a restricted definition as far as a buyer is concerned. Now we have a wider definition of the word allottee, which is getting covered under this Act. Allottee basically would mean a person who is been allotted or a property has been transferred in his favor. It includes a person, even if includes a person who's bought it directly as freehold, or even if he acquires it as leasehold. Then but subsequently doesn't include people who've acquired it on license basis. Considering this definition, we are talking of a very wider spectrum here. Most of the people who have not eventually become owners of the asset will also get covered under this definition. Now, another important definition which is a part of this Act is promoter. It was slightly restrictive in the earlier Act, which was MOFA. The definition now would include and mean a person who is actually constructing the premises or the building. It would also include the owner of the land. Now we're talking of a joint venture scenario here, where we have a developer who's developing it with the owner. Subsequently, it includes people like people who are constructing, so it may include a contractor as well. So basically what we are looking at here, a scenario where if the promoter is to move out of the scenario, then there is no alternate for the owners or the contractors to raise their hands and just say that I'm not a part of this project, or I'm not liable for the obligations as contemplated under this Act. So effectively, this is a very positive step for all of us, because tomorrow, especially, we've seen in scenarios, especially in Northern India, where developers have overnight just shut shop and they vanished. And when you try to go to the owner for seeking some sort of recourse, the standard reply that we always used to receive is that I am not under any obligations, neither is there any privity of contract between you and me, so I am not required to perform any part of this. So keeping that in mind, I see this as a definitely a positive step towards getting investors' right protected. The next definition that comes to mind is the definition of agent. Now this is a key person which I feel has been rightly defined and brought within the ambit of the Act. In India especially, the agent plays a key role as far as buying and selling of assets is concerned. There are hardly scenarios where people directly go and approach an end buyer, or a buyer rather approaches an actual seller, and it is basically to the extent of 60 to 70% of today's transactions are done through agent. There is no fixed laws as far as agents are concerned. Rather, there were no fixed laws, and it was basically a market practice, and which would vary across different places. Today, we are in a scenario, at least we've taken a positive step where we are trying to bring these people under one common law. I presume that they've picked up a leaf out of the books of SEBI, how people who were dealing in mutual funds were actually eventually made to come under the ambit of a particular law and register themselves. I think we're trying to do something similar here, where an agent under this act is required to register himself. It may be registration which will be restricted to a particular territory, or it may be on an all India basis, but that will be more clear once the rules are out. But as of now, the scenario is that a person who is facilitating the buying or selling of a premises directly, indirectly, through any medium will be deemed to be an agent. So going forward, we are not, the moment I use the word agent, I don't talk about the person who will be walking with you, who will be taking you to different premises to help you buy and sort it out. But even if a person who gives you a lead, which eventually results you in buying a premises, for all purpose will be treated as an agent. Now, what are the implications? Now, we are talking of a scenario where such a person going forward cannot do this kind of business or indulge in this kind of activities without being registered with the authority. And there is also a requirement that if a documentation has been facilitated or a transaction has been facilitated by the agent, the transaction is required to register and record the number and the registration number of the agent. So effectively, what I feel, and going forward the rules will make it clearer, but they are trying to link up the registration number and the documentation details with the books that will be maintained by the agent. Having said that, there is a requirement under the Act to for the agents to maintain certain books of all the sales that they have done. So I think the intention comes where the agent's books, which will be submitted for verification, will be cross-checked with the documentation where his number appears. So this will basically help us to identify whether the transactions recorded by him and the transactions recorded in the documents are actually the same, and for which the rightful amount has been paid to him. Another important definition that comes to mind is the word advertisement. Now, there is a very strict law with regards the advertisement procedure that has been laid down. Rather, not the procedure, but on the nature of advertisement. Now, this was always a grievance that we'd seen with regards consumers, that what is displayed or what is put forward to you and eventually what you get is really different. So keeping this in mind, I feel that the authorities here have tried to address this point. We have had instances where the Consumer Court or the Competition Commission of India had taken strict cognizance of such issues. But now we have express literature in form of this act which tries to cope with this kind of issues. So when I say advertisement, I merely don't mean advertisement appearing in a newspaper or advertisement appearing in a television or a radio. We are talking of all and every medium. So the language here is quite explicit, which tries to cover any sort of mediums. And basically, it tries to cover the ambit of sale. They are silent as far as leasing of property is concerned. Now, I'm drawing this rationale from the definition of allottee, because the allottee would include a lessee as well. But with regards the advertisement, the word lease is not been used, and they've tried to restrict themselves to sale. If you look at the consequences of advertisement in this act, they are quite strict. We will deal with that part later on. But this is a very positive move, because there are severe implications that a person may have to face. This includes a promoter and an agent who is trying to missell a project by indulging in wrong form of advertisement may get hit by these provisions. The very new thing that comes to my mind is the registration part. Now, when I say registration part, I do not mean the registration of the document. Now, this is altogether a new concept that has been introduced under the Act. There is a requirement under the Act of registration of each and every project. Now, how does it help us? The thing being that when I am a developer and I'm looking to put up a project for sale in the market, The new act requires that I have to first register the project before I can even approach the market for sale of a single unit. Now, what would this process entail? In long and short, the registration of a project would ensure that there are some basic amount of disclosures which has been done by the developer with regards to the particular project. Another new mechanism that has been introduced under this act is creation of a website. Now, what is this website that we're talking about? This website will be controlled by the regulatory authority which will be formed under this act. The intention altogether of forming this website was to ensure that each and every project which is for sale will have a particular web page, and such web page will be required to display the details of the project. The exact details of the project in long and short will be your approvals, your sanction plans, the layout of the units that are up for sale. The basic intention was that by having such documentation and information up readily in the web, it helps people who are actually prospective purchasers to go to such website and actually figure out what are the units that are available for sale, what are the permissions, if at all, that has been obtained, if there are some lacuna in the project, and it gives you an idea of where you are basically trying to enter. The entire process of this website is linked to the process of registration, which is a new gambit which has been introduced under the Act. We are very happy with this positive that has been taken, because now every project will be required to be registered. Now, the law under this act is very clear that a project which is not registered cannot be put up for sale. This will effectively help in bringing in more transparency in the sector. This will also bring in a lot of clarity with regards permissions and sanctions that are concerned. And going forward, this will be a great step that we think that will bring in a lot of positive movement in this sector, and it will also help some bit of foreign investment coming into this sector, because the trust level will go up. In continuation of the previous point, another important thing that has been brought under this act is disclosures with regards the project by the promoter. Now, the word promoter here has to be read in the same manner in which we had spoken out and in which we had defined the promoter under the act. A promoter is required to make out certain specific disclosures with regards the project, which includes all the plans, which includes all the sanctioned areas, which includes your layout, which also includes the format of the documentation which is proposed to be executed with prospective purchasers. Now, this was another big complaint under the earlier regime of the Real Estate Act. More often than not, it was very difficult to get a copy of the agreement from the developer, and most of the consumers ended up signing documents on the dotted line. Now, under this new act, you have a scenario where you will be able to look up into the website and take a copy of the proposed agreements that has been proposed for the particular project. And accordingly, you are aware of the documentation that you're going to enter into. In addition to the obligations, there is also a new concept of affidavit which is required under the Act. Now, generally, what does this affidavit entail? This affidavit will require the promoter to set out certain key elements relating to a project and make a declaration regarding the same. What are these key elements? The key elements would include the title of the project. He would make a declaration with regards the marketability of the project, that there are no encumbrances on the project. He will make out declarations with regards to the professionals who are involved in the project. Now, who would these professionals be? It would include the architect, it would include the structural engineer, it would include the agent who will be involved in the project. And just going back to the earlier point that we had made, it will be agents who are named under the declaration and who are declared in the website. Only they will be allowed to deal in assets in a particular project. Also, there is a very key emphasis that has been laid with regards to the title of a project. There are instances where several projects in Bombay especially are stuck today because there are issues relating to the title. Now, another new concept that has been introduced under this act is insurance of title. Although at present we do not have title insurances being offered by most of the insurance companies in India, but this practice is prevalent in most of the European states. So basically what we try to cover here is any liability that may be brought about by any third-party litigation or any loss that may be caused because of any defect in the title will be made good by such insurance policies. There are also certain obligations which has been cast upon the allottees under this act. The earlier act didn't have any such provisions, but now going forward, we as purchasers will also be required to be careful at our end with regards to the compliances. So some of the key points that needs to be kept in mind is, firstly, the possession. There is an obligation that has been cast upon the allottee to take possession within 2 months of the receipt of the occupation certificate. Now, it has to be read in light of the usage of the word occupation certificate. So the long and short of the story is that the obligation is upon the allottee to ensure that he takes possession only upon receipt of the occupation certificate. So basically, we feel that the practice of taking possession certificate and sitting on a property for long durations when the OC has not been received will have its implications under the new act. There are two other important obligations that has been cast upon an allottee. Firstly, is to make payments within the stipulated timeline as set out in the agreement. This originally was not an obligation under the older statute, but it was a contractual obligation. Having said that, there is also an additional obligation here which requires an allottee to be a part of the common association or the organization that may be formed eventually in the building, and to take all steps that may be necessary for formation of such association.
I am going to be dealing with the process for registration of the real estate project. Now, while the promoter has to make an application to the Real Estate Regulatory Authority, there are a set of documents that he needs to enclose along with this application. So what are those documents, and they are critical in nature. So number one is that the promoter has to enclose brief details of the enterprise, that is the promoter's enterprise, along with the name and photograph. He also needs to enclose the brief details of the projects launched by the promoter in the past 5 years, the details of any cases which are pending against that project, any payments which are pending. Along with this, the promoter also has to submit authenticated copies of the approvals and the commencement certificate, sanctioned plans, layout, development works, the latitude, longitude of the project, and additionally, the promoter is also required to specifically set out the carpet area of the flats which are going to be allotted, the number and the area of the garage, the number and the addresses of the real estate agents which are specifically registered and licensed under the Real Estate Regulation and Development Act.
As a part of the registration, the promoter is also required to make an affidavit. This affidavit will basically cover his title to the property. It will also make a declaration with regards to usage of the funds from the project towards the construction and acquisition of the land for the project. It is also required to set out the period within which the construction will be completed. He is also required to make an undertaking with regards the receivables from the project to the extent of 70%, that it will be used only towards the construction of that particular project.
The Act contemplates consent under certain scenarios. In the event that there is any alteration in the structural plan, layout in relation to the real estate project, or there is any transfer of rights in the project to a third party, the Act mandates consent from 2/3 of the allottees. In addition to this, in the event the promoter's shareholding into the entity which is controlling the real estate project goes below 51%, the Act requires 2/3 of the allottee to consent to such a scenario. In addition to all of this, the Act also stipulates that if there is any alteration or change in the layout or plan of a specific flat apartment, then the respective allottee's consent has to be obtained by the promoter. The Real Estate Regulatory Authority established under the Act is to deal with disputes arising between an allottee and a promoter. The Real Estate Regulatory Authority is given exclusive jurisdiction to decide disputes between an allottee and a promoter. Any party aggrieved by the order of the Real Estate Regulatory Authority can prefer an appeal before the appellate tribunal, and orders of the appellate tribunal are subsequently appealable before the High Court. Coming to the penalty provisions under the Real Estate Regulation Act. The penalty provisions are bifurcated into 3 subcategories. In order to understand the 3 subcategories, it becomes integral to go back to the definition of estimated cost of real estate project. Estimated cost of the real estate project under the Act is defined to not just include the amount invested in developing the land, but also includes cess, taxes and other charges. Now we come back to the 3 bifurcations of penalty. The first penalty is of 5% of the estimated cost of the real estate project. This 5% of the estimated cost of real estate project kicks in onto the promoter in the event there is any dissemination of false information by the promoter, or there is contravention of Section 4 of the Act. Now coming back to Section 4 of the Act. Section 4 of the Act was the section which dealt with the documents that were to be enclosed by the promoter at the time of submitting an application to register his real estate project. Similarly, this 5% of estimated cost of the real estate project as a penalty could also kick in onto the real estate agent. The real estate agent could be levied this penalty if he fails to register himself under the provisions of the Act. Under the Act, it is also integral to note that there is a penalty which is levied on the allottee of the flat or the apartment. Now, the allottee of a flat or apartment can be levied a penalty of up to 5% of the estimated cost of the real estate project in the event he fails to comply with the orders of the Real Estate Regulatory Authority. This penalty on the allottee can be extended up to 10% of the estimated cost of the real estate project if there is a failure to comply with orders or directions passed by the appellate tribunal. Also, interestingly, this penalty on the allottee can be by way of an imprisonment for up to 1 year for failing to comply with orders of the appellate tribunal. Subcategory 2 of the penalty provisions reflects an increase of penalty from 5% of the estimated cost of the real estate project to 10% of the estimated cost of the real estate project. Now, this 10% penalty kicks in onto the promoter as well as the allottee or the real estate agent. In the case of an allottee or the real estate agent, this 10% of estimated cost of real estate project only kicks in if there is a failure to abide by the orders or directions of the appellate tribunal. Now, in the case of a promoter, this penalty of 10% of the estimated cost of the real estate project kicks in two scenarios. One, where there is a non-registration of the real estate project with the authority by the promoter, or if there is a failure to comply with the orders and directions of the appellate tribunal. Further on, the Real Estate Regulation Act casts criminal liability by way of imprisonment on the promoter, the real estate agent, as well as the allottee. What is noteworthy is that in case of an allottee or a real estate agent, imprisonment can be only up to a maximum of 1 year. However, in the case of a promoter, imprisonment can be extendable up to 3 years.